Hey guys, winter's finally here and starting to get in the mood for ice fishing. A lot of people, it's December 2019, a lot of people in the country are already ice fishing. I'm in New York State, we're still kind of waiting. Might be another couple weeks, but hoping to be able to get on the ice pretty soon. So I thought in the meantime that maybe I would do a review video on my Clam Legend XL Thermal, full thermal ice shelter, or and I thought maybe it'd be helpful for any of you guys or people who are considering buying one of these things, and maybe if you haven't had one of these shelters before, or maybe if you're thinking about upgrading to a different shelter. I bought this shelter in fall of 2018, so I did use it all of last year, all of the 2018-19 ice fishing season, and so I think I have a pretty good handle on some of the things that are good about it, and if there's anything that is maybe not so good. I should start by mentioning that I did upgrade to this shelter from before I had this one. I had a Clam Kanai Pro Thermal shelter, which was smaller, and it was a little different setup, and I didn't care for it as much. It was fine for me for a few years, but it just turned out that I just needed something a little different, and so I wanted one that was just a little bit bigger, and so I ended up selling that one and purchasing this one last year. And I have to say that all in all, I'm happy with this shelter. So I'm not going to go into all the detailed features of it. You can just read that stuff online. You read it on Clam's website or any place that you can buy these things. I got this one. I got it from Cabela's, and I think I paid about somewhere like 400, 500 bucks for it, something like that. So um, all in all, I think it's a good shelter. I don't think that you'd be disappointed if you were to buy one, but I just thought I would go through some of the stuff that I like about it, and maybe some of the things, some of the features that they don't really talk about in the catalogs and stuff when you're going to buy one of these things. So I'm gonna grab the camera, and before I do that, I want to just kind of give you an idea of the size of this thing. It's a I call it a 1.5 person shelter because it's actually oriented on the sled sideways, so you don't have to, you have some shoulder room in there. It's 43 inches wide, which is really nice, so you've got some room to move around. That was one of the complaints I did have about the former shelter I had, was that it was just a little cramped. I felt like my shoulders were touching the side of it, and if you needed to turn around in there or get something out of the sled, sometimes it was a little hard to do, especially when you're wearing all your ice gear. So this one here, being that it's 43 inches wide, it gives you a lot more space to do that. The other thing is that it's a much bigger fishable area. It's got 17 square feet of fishable space of ice that you can fish in, and when the cover is up, when it's up like this. And that's really nice, because another problem I had with the smaller shelter was that I had to find a way to attach my little buddy my heater inside the sled and stuff, because when you had a heater on the ice and a bucket and your flasher, and then you're trying to fish and stuff, a lot of times there just isn't a lot of room to move around. It's fine. I didn't mind it. It's just that it was a little cramped, and I just felt like I wanted something a little bigger. So I'm just gonna stand over here so you can get an idea. I'm 5'11", and I think this thing is 66 inches high. So if you're a taller person, just something for you to keep in mind. You can see how tall this is, and it's enough room to stand up in there in kind of like a crouched position if you have to. But for the most part, you don't do a lot of standing up completely anyways in these things. So I want to show you quickly how it sets up and everything. One of the things it has is it has poles that are like telescopic. I don't know what you call them, but they're kind of telescopic. And so I was concerned at first that I thought that might be kind of hard to have to extend the poles every time I wanted to, because I like to move around a lot, and to have to extend the poles every time, I was concerned about that. But it turns out it's not really, it's pretty easy to do, and it didn't really turn out to be that much of a problem. So Before I go on, it weighs so it weighs 60 pounds empty, and that is fairly accurate. So when you start filling it up with gear, it's something you don't like to have a super heavy shelter. This isn't super heavy, but if you don't like to have a lot of weight, if you do a lot of, like I do most of my traversing walking, so I don't have a snowmobile or anything like that, or a quad, so I'm dragging this thing all the time. So the weight was a concern. So I was trying to find something that was a little bigger, that was thermal, and and also kind of kept the weight down. And I think this one is a good balance of that. So I'll show you real quick how the thing folds up and opens up. So if you want to just move, you can move the shelter by just opening up like that and not collapsing the poles. But if you have to move far distances, or if you're gonna drag it behind a snowmobile, or if I don't know, if you're dragging it through deep snow or something like that and you want to collapse it, it's not that difficult to do. So you can see it's pretty easy to collapse. Now I'm going to show you how you can open it really quickly. So that's how that goes. It's really quick. And you're on the ice, it's not a big deal to do. So I'm going to grab the camera now. I'm going to show you some of the features on it, some of the things that I like, and maybe some things that I think could use some improvement. This is the first thing. So if you've ever owned one of these clam shelters before, you know that this can be a bit of a pain in the butt when you get them for the first time, is the assembly of them. And for the most part it's pretty easy, except when it comes to mounting this little plastic, I don't know what you'd call it, like a channel that goes over the sled, that it holds the fabric. It holds the fabric to the sled. And this is a fairly flexible piece of plastic, but one thing that happens is if it gets really, if it's cold, or it always seems to come out of the box all bent up. If it's cold, or if that happens, then getting it on this and pinching the fabric with this channel and the edge of the sled, it can be kind of a pain in the butt. So for anyone who has trouble with this, or for anyone who might be putting one of these together for the first time, the easiest thing I found to do was to heat it up with a heat gun. So if you've got a heat gun for like stripping paint, I don't know if a hairdryer would work. I haven't tried it. I don't know if it would get hot enough. It might work enough, but I just happen to already have a heat gun, so that worked good. So I got this all soft and flexible and everything, and then I was able to get it up on top of that, or get it up to pinch on that edge a lot better, or a lot easier. And then, so if you keep it soft, you just put the screws in and you just move along and keep softening it as you're going, obviously without burning the fabric or melting the sled. These sleds they're not super durable. They're pretty thin to keep the weight down, so you really can't get the heat gun near the sled or it'll melt it. it'll start softening it right away. So you just kind of move along, and that tends to work pretty good. Now I have to take mine, I take my fabric on and off every year. So one way to make it really easier is to, once you do get it on there the first time, you can see I put a black line with a Sharpie on the fabric exactly where the plastic should go and where the fabric should go, because sometimes it takes, the first time it takes a little fidgeting to get the fabric where you need it to, so it's hanging properly on the frame. So I found that that's really helpful, just putting a black line on there so you can line it up the next year if you end up to be someone who takes, I have to take it off because I keep it in my garage and we have mice, so I don't want to leave it. I end up putting it in a plastic bin for the summer. So anyways, heating it up, that's the key to making sure this thing goes on right, I think. So you can see that it has a back door and a window, has windows on all sides. That's one of the things that some of the pictures online I couldn't quite see if it had windows on all sides, which turns out it does. Full thermal shell, air flaps for ventilation. There's one on each side. Got a door on the front. So, window on the front. There's that side there. It's got a pretty good size, whatever you call this thing, cloth flange, fabric flange thing that keeps the wind out. So, okay, so now we'll open it up here. Alright, so this is the deal. This is what it comes with. The one that I got, at least. It comes with the deluxe seat, which is the plastic swivel seat with this the cushion on it. It has a hammock, a gear hammock underneath here. Seat slides back, slides side to side. It slides front to back. It's also, like I said, this thing weighs 60 pounds, and a large portion of that weight is this seat mechanism, but it's very easy to take the seat off. You just, all you gotta do is just pop this thing and it comes right off. And so that's helpful for transport if you need to. But if you're somebody who's really concerned about the weight, you could probably eliminate about, I don't know, 8 pounds maybe from this thing by removing that seat mechanism and just sitting on a cooler or a bucket or something. It did not, the one that I got at least, did not come with this corner tray. I had to buy that separately, and I had that on my Kanai Pro Thermal before this, and I really liked it. It's nice to have a place to set things, so ended up putting that on there. You can see that it's a shallow tub sled, and it's painted gray on the inside, which is nice, trying to find things in there, and I'll show you why that is nice in a little bit. It comes with this pole, which is support pole for the back once you have it fully up. I don't really use it a lot. It's just another step, but sometimes I don't even take it with me. But it seems to be well made. It's made very similar, or exactly like all the other fish traps, where it's got this, the hinge thing on the front here, and it works good. So one of the things I really wanted to show you so I didn't know that when I bought this. I didn't know it came with a blackout interior, and so for some of you guys who do a lot of ice fishing, then you do a lot of sight fishing, this is a good shelter for that, because I've been out, and it's a sunny day where I am right now, and I'm in the shade, but I've been out on sunny days with it, and I want to show you how dark it is inside when I flip the cover. So that's how dark it gets in here when you close the cover. And so if you want to sight fish, you can see right down in the water, no problem, in the middle of a afternoon on a sunny day. And so if you'd like, you can open up the windows. There's There's windows, all 4 windows. Now you have plenty of light inside. You can see, you know, it's comes with that hammock thing on the ceiling. Like I said, the air vents you can open if you have a propane heater, and just lots of space. I mean, look, here's I'm at the front of the sled here, so as far forward as the seat can go. Put my feet out, and there's still almost 2 feet of space between me and the end of the shelter. And you can see there's there's a good foot to a foot and a half on each side of my feet too. So it's real nice to have that. I'll see if I can hold this camera and turn it around and show you. So you can see I got lots of space here. So lots of elbow room, which is nice. Okay. So now one of the things that I said is that the advantage, if you like to sight fish, is that this shelter is really nice because it really holds out. It really can hold out the light. One of the disadvantages, and one thing that I have to say that I'm not disappointed in, because it's not like a feature that it has that I don't know how to describe it, but it's not like it has it and it's good. But one of the things that maybe just doesn't quite suit my needs fishing is that I like to fish into the evening, and sorry, I like to fish into the evening, and as the sun starts to go down, this thing gets really dark on the inside very quickly. So even on a day when it's dim, when it's a cloudy day, if it's a very cloudy day, using this thing, it will get dark inside. So I have to carry like lights with me. This didn't come with any of the lights that Clam makes, like the light bars, which I don't want to have one of those, because then you got to carry a battery. So I don't need the extra weight, but that's one of the issues. But so it's an advantage if you like to sight fish, and if it's a really bright sunny day. To me, it's a disadvantage if you like to fish into the evening, because the one I had before did not have the blackout interior, and it would be pretty light inside there right up until dark. Whereas this one, it's about, I don't know what it is right now. I think it's about 1 o'clock, 1:30 here. And the sun's wintertime. It's the shortest day of the year. It's the 21st. So the sun's already pretty low at 1 o'clock. And when it gets to about this level, it can get really dark inside the shelter. So just so you're aware, if you don't want to have to deal with that, then you might want to try and go with one that's not the blackout interior. Well, I think that's pretty much it. I just wanted to kind of give you an overview. Sorry about that amateur camera work. I just wanted to give you an overview of this thing, kind of give you some of my thoughts on the features. And like I said, I used it all last year, and I've dragged this thing for miles. And you do have to be careful with this. If you haven't owned one of these, you do have to be careful with the sleds. They do try to minimize the weight as much as possible by making the plastic on the sled as thin as possible. And it's not to say that it's not durable and that it's not of good quality. It's just that you have to be mindful that you can't go dragging this over a gravel parking lot or something like that. You basically have to be dragging it on snow or ice all the time. And if you're not going to, you better have some sort of a little wheeled cart, or I don't know, maybe they get those runner kits they sell with the metal, or some other means to try and keep the sled from getting damaged. Other than that, I mean, as far as actual usage, they're very durable. The plastic is very flexible, and so it makes them kind of suited for cold weather conditions. I think that's pretty much it. I'm very satisfied. I've used this I fish for walleyes, I fish for panfish, I've tip-up fished with it, and you can open the windows and watch tip-ups. It's nice for that. It's a very comfortable seat. I'll sit in the seat, can sit in the seat for hours in one spot, and the seat, it never gets uncomfortable. It holds a lot of gear. The only thing I'll caution is that with these shelters, especially ones like this that are a little bit bigger, the fabric takes up a lot of room in the sled when you're trying to pull it, when you fold it up. You can leave it open. You can leave it open like that while you're dragging it, and the fabric will be out of your way for the most part. But if you collapse the poles, then all this fabric here, it ends up really taking up a lot of room inside the sled, and so you can have your gear down inside of it, but what happens is you end up covering your gear with the fabric. So if you need to get anything out of there while you're dragging the sled or something, then you end up having to kind of move the fabric out of the way. And it's not a big deal, but it's just something you should be aware of, that if you like to take a lot of gear, then you might want to, I don't know, have somebody else drag another sled or something that has the gear in it, and don't think that you can just load this thing up, because it's going to get pretty heavy for one thing. But it's also kind of limited on how much it can hold, because of the amount of the thermal fabric takes up a lot of space. So anyways, I just thought I would give you a brief overview, and I hope this helps. And if you got any... Oh, another thing, I did do a review of it. If you are considering buying the Kenai Pro Thermal, the smaller shelter, I did do a review of that a couple years ago. That's still on YouTube, so you can look that up and see my review on that shelter. But all in all, I used this all last year, and it's holding up well. It seems pretty durable. I like it, and I'm satisfied with it, and I can't wait to continue using it this year. So good luck in your ice fishing adventures. Be safe, and if you have any questions or any comments about the shelter, feel free to leave them in the comments section for the video. Thanks.